but the gut and the brain. And can we dive into that a little more? Because it's such a big thing. And I mean, I even have a family member who's like, I don't eat many carbs. I work out. I do. Why am I not getting the transformation in my body? Should I be on these peptides? I'm like, hey, bud, it's your stress level.
Yeah.
And let's see, you know what? It's not what's on your plate. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not taking something out or adding something in. You've got to work on the stress.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you bring that up of the calories in, calories out has always been like the mainstream advice for weight loss. But like you said, there's so many people it doesn't work, and what people don't realize too is like the stress piece, cortisol influences blood sugar. That's your stress hormone. If you're in a constant state of high cortisol, high stress for a long period of time, it's going to mess with fasting insulin. It's going to mess with all your hormones because it's one of the master hormones of the body that controls estrogen and progesterone and testosterone and, even your thyroid hormones. And so really down regulating the nervous system, getting it from that sympathetic fight or flight into that rest and digest is so incredibly important in the healing process, because that gut-brain connection actually starts in the brainstem. So in the bottom of your brainstem, you have the vagus nerve that comes out and goes and, innervates all of your internal organs, including your gut. And so that connection between your brain and gut is through that vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is what allows that peristalsis motion to allow you to have normal bowel movements and not get constipated. And, it has so many functions too, because like you said, from a neurological perspective, if you're in fight or flight, the last thing your body's going to do is push blood flow to your gut, or push blood flow to, something that's not absolutely essential. It's going to actually push blood flow to your big muscles, like your arms and your legs, so you can sprint and run away because it's a survival mechanism. And so what I see with people is when they're in that high state of stress, their vagus nerve activation is incredibly low. And so I like to teach people, ways that they can calm down the nervous system through breathing, through vagus nerve activation, through simple things that are really actually free. Grounding at sunrise and sunset is one of the best things that can regulate your hormone. Like it is so easy, so simple. Obviously, if you live up north, it's a little challenging. We live in Southern California, so we're spoiled. But yeah, it can be a little more challenging. But that is one of the best things you can do to help regulate sleep, to help regulate hormones, to help, get in that good, day-night cycle of making sure your brain is producing melatonin at night to allow you to fall asleep, to get that deep sleep where your liver's detoxing, your brain is detoxing, your lymphatic system is removing waste from those organs and getting it out of your system. Mm-hmm. And so there's all these simple things that you can do to really calm that nervous system down. But from a neurological perspective too, if you have a history of head injuries, even whiplash injuries are a big damage to the bottom part of that brainstem when you get like that rotational force in your neck. That's actually been shown to have more significant concussion symptoms in people than actually getting an impact to the head a lot of the times. And it's because you damage that part of the brainstem. All information from your body starts from the bottom of the brain up and goes from the back of the brain, to the front. And so if you have any breakdown in that part of your brain, it's going to affect that signaling to your internal organs. And that can be a huge piece of the problem. And so I used to work on people's brains, before I got into functional medicine. And as we were healing and finding areas of weakness in their brain and, increasing it over time, all of a sudden their bloating, their IBS, their constipation would go away or get significantly better. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I would see that a lot with concussion patients. They didn't have gut issues before, and then they did after. And that, I think, was a big reason why I had such significant gut issues at a young age. I had a really severe head injury when I was 18 and I almost died. Like it was bad. And I damaged that part of the brainstem that the vagus nerve lives in. And so all this stuff made sense when I started learning neurology. I was like, oh, that's why I had such severe gut issues and I couldn't go to the bathroom. And I really had to heal a lot of those brain issues that were still kind of residually left over from that head injury to get the full healing benefit of, getting my gut health back on track. And that's where I started. But then it was like, okay, well, now we've got to address the other piece of the puzzle, the chronic stress from being in grad school and, starting your own practice and, all that stuff. And all those infections that were growing in the gut before I healed my brain for 5 years and, get those out of the system. But yeah, your brain is so incredibly important to gut health, and your gut bacteria communicate with your brain all the time, which I find incredibly fascinating. I don't know how that happens, but it's bizarre. And so, yeah, if you guys want to just really nerd out, if you're like huge into brain gut connection, there's some really cool research out there will blow your mind. It's